Hi, I'm Russell, and I'm a professional artist in Miami, Florida. But before that, you might remember me as your oyster shucker. I had the privilege of working with Mr. Willie Brown for 10 years, and I was honored to be asked to come and speak on his behalf by Mr. Bob Omansky at this tribute. Unfortunately, I can't be there in person, so I wanted to offer a video tribute to Mr. Willie Brown. There was a speech I wrote on behalf of Mr. Brown. I believe it was 2012, and I think the most fitting thing is just to read that and, change the tense from is to was. So if it sounds a little dated, well, you know what that means. Downtown Willie Brown. If you haven't heard that name yet, you might not be familiar with the city of Mobile, Alabama, a city that prides itself on tradition, hospitality, and service. A city that takes care of people, just as this great state does. This city had an amazing asset. This asset was Willie Brown. 75 years ago, Winsel's Oyster House was founded in downtown Mobile, Alabama, the oldest restaurant in the city in its original location, a landmark, a consistent establishment to provide the service and food that needs to represent the Gulf Coast in its truest form. I believe the success has a large part to do with the people involved. After all, it's not the building that keeps people coming back. It's the feeling that people have when they think of us down here in Mobile. The people. One of those people was Willie Brown. To say Willie Brown was an icon is an understatement. Through good times and bad, he had been the face of hope and determination, a true embodiment of the Deep South. For example, in the midst of the worst crisis in our recent history, the Deepwater Horizon incident, the Wall Street Journal did a piece on our plight. A periodical of business, a written record of history needed a face. That face was Willie Brown. Featured on the front page, right in the middle, was Willie's face, going down as an example of hope, of rebuilding, and commitment. But it wasn't a recent picture. It was a stock photo. You didn't have to look far to find him. A Google search will turn Willie Brown up. Try Winsel's. Try Mobile, Alabama. Try oysters. Sooner or later, he'll appear. This business is all about service. It's about being able to effectively communicate the desires and needs of the members of our community and fulfill them. As a restaurant, the base need is satisfying both the hunger and the need to be taken care of and served. Mr. Willie Brown was perfect at that. He possessed a personal consistency of self. This comes from knowing exactly how to do what you do so well that you don't start out with the status of icon. You don't even really desire it. You subconsciously earn it. After 40 some odd years, there's no way on earth to not know just about everything there is to know about the oyster. Mr. Brown has taken all of the people, all the stories, all the time devoted to the experience he's gained over a lifetime of consistency. Knowing the job that needs to be done, however humble, and doing it. I've heard way too many stories about Mr. Brown to possibly recant all of them, but he's a lot of things to a lot of people fortunate enough to have been in his service. Never boasting, he always let the work he did, speak for itself. That's humble. That's an admirable quality. As humble, but as important to the Gulf as the oyster itself. The oyster serves the Gulf and its inhabitants by renewing the purity of our beautiful waters, the waters that feed so many, as Mr. Brown has. The purity of dedication one man has provided to the Gulf, the city of Mobile, and the state of Alabama. The city of Mobile just recently installed a tourism program to help restore the oyster beds off the coast in Mobile Bay. The Kickstarter for this program was to instill the first half dozen statues of an eventual dozen oysters, highlighting the beauty and importance of this area. Within each oyster was a scene showing natural important figures and scenes here in South Alabama. The only human being portrayed on them? Yep, you guessed it, Mr. Willie Brown. And this was a full 3 years after Mr. Brown was honored with a day named after him, honoring the 40th anniversary of his service, a service to the state of Alabama, the city of Mobile, the guests and legacy of Winsel's Oyster House, and the oyster itself. There are a million oysters in the world. Just ask Willie, they never end. But pearls, real natural pearls, are rare and special. I only found this many in 10 years of service. But like I said, there are a million oysters in the world. But pearls, real natural pearls, are rare and special. Mr. Willie Brown was one of those pearls, and I am honored to have known him. Sincerely, Mr. Russell Mauceri, former oyster shucker at Winsel's Oyster House. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of what you've built. And I'm looking forward to working with you again in the future. Y'all have a nice day.